Now, this week, Justice Secretary Alex Chalk said that some prisoners in England and Wales could be released up to 2 months early to relieve overcrowding in jails, which are currently running at over 99% capacity, with some predictions saying they're on course to be full by Easter. In response to the news, Labour said that the government had failed to build enough prisons. Last autumn, the government announced a new piece of legislation, the sentencing bill, which would impose tougher sentences on the most serious crimes, but would effectively scrap prison sentences of less than 12 months. Now, the bill is still going through Parliament. Today we ask, should we send fewer people to prison? Well, joining me to discuss that are Peter Bleksley, a former police detective and author, Ayesha Nayyar, a solicitor and businesswoman, Andrea Coomber from the Howard League for Penal Reform, and Richard Garside, the director of the Centre for Crime and Justice Studies. Welcome to the show. Thanks for all coming in. Peter, so male prisons in England and Wales are 99.7% full. I mean, that's incredible. It's got to that stage. It's a similar picture across the UK. We're sending too many people to prison, aren't we?
No, we're definitely not. We just don't have enough prison capacity. And the government recognised this in 2020 when it announced a programme of further prisons to be built. Some of those have been delayed by planning issues because, of course, so many MPs will tell you we need more prisons, and then when one is proposed in their constituency, suddenly they get up in arms over it. But no, we need more prison capacity. We need to send more people to prisons, as long as they are functioning prisons that have the right element and balance of punishment and rehabilitation.
Yeah, Andrea, how would you respond to that? I mean, there's a deterrent, isn't there? If you're going to steal something, but you know you're going to go to prison, you might not steal something. The deterrent comes, all the studies show, deterrent comes from actually knowing you're going to get caught, not from knowing what the sanction is. But if you know you're going to be released straight away, then it is a deterrent, surely. No, I mean, there's not really very much evidence at all that there's a deterrent. I mean, what's interesting, what Peter said, is we already lock up more people than everywhere else in Western Europe. We have the highest prison population we've ever had, and the projections are to lock up another 25,000 people in the next 4 years. The truth is, prison doesn't work. It doesn't rehabilitate people, as Peter's suggesting. We're very good at punishing people, but all but 70 people in prison are returning to the community, and we need them to return in a way that is pro-social and safe for everybody. And there are many better alternatives to prison that we really need to explore, rather than just throwing more and more people endlessly in prison. Aisha, that reoffending statistic, they are shocking. So currently 25% are reoffending. The new Ministry of Justice figures revealed that more than 80% of jailed shoplifters reoffend. 80%. I mean, it just makes you think prison, as Andrew was saying, doesn't work, because if people are going in and just coming back out and reoffending, we need something else, don't we?
I think we need to look at our prisons, and we've got to look, to start off with, why are we sending people to prison? What is the purpose of prison? There's a multitude of reasons. Well, first of all, it's got to be a punishment prison. It's got to act, as you quite rightly said, as a deterrent. I would be terrified of getting a sentence and being sent to prison. It's got to be a form of rehabilitation, so I believe in that. We've got to have a form of retribution as well. So victims, and I come to this programme from a victim perspective, they want justice. They want the perpetrator locked up. And then finally... But the balance is in favour of the punishment and the deterrent there, isn't it? Not in the rehabilitation. That's the point. Absolutely. But we've also got to get these dangerous people off our streets. Now, with rehabilitation, I think it's very, very important that we have the right procedures in prison to rehabilitate, but that's not the only reason. From a victim perspective, and it depends what you come to this programme from, I want prison to get dangerous people off our streets. So deterrent, punishment, getting dangerous people off our streets. There's a multitude of reasons. There's some good points there, aren't there?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we want to have prisons that are rehabilitative, for example, I mean, they are currently grossly overcrowded. So as a starting point, right now, we would need to build the equivalent of about 10 medium-sized prisons just to deal with the existing overcrowding problem. So build more, then? Well, no, I'm just saying, if that's the argument, we need prisons. Yes. So we would need to build at least another 10 prisons right now. In order to meet the current targets for what we're expecting prisons to be in 5 years' time, we need to build another 20 medium-sized prisons. Now, where does this all end? You know, I mean, if we go back historically, Margaret Thatcher's government, hardly a notorious Liberal, they got by with a prison population less than half the current level. So, you know, we're in a historically unprecedented situation. I've never seen a crisis in the prison system like this. This is just morally unacceptable, actually, and financially not sustainable.
In Margaret Thatcher's day, crime levels were different, policing was very different, sentencing guidelines were very different, and by and large, the streets were a hostile environment for criminals. Now, they're manifestly not. So that fear of being caught simply doesn't exist for thousands upon thousands of criminals.
That's a police issue, not a prisons issue, then.
Yeah, and if we want to discuss the police, we'll be here all day.
OK,
we know
let's
how
keep it on prisons.
they are.
Let's keep it on prisons.
So, in the absence of a fully functioning, properly effective police service, and we haven't got that, then when people are actually caught, and clearly considerable numbers of people are caught, hence we've got the prison population that we've got, there needs to be punishment. That needs to serve as a deterrent so that people think twice or three times about committing the crime.
OK, Peter, so if I'm listening to that at home, I'm thinking, the way you're talking about it, these are hardened criminals, really, really awful crimes. What about all those people, perhaps who are shoplifting? So we often hear about this epidemic of shoplifting. 1,300 offences are happening every day. Some of those, it's because of the cost of living crisis. They're if you think about the individual story,
and much of
going to prison.
And much of that shoplifting is committed by organised gangs who steal high-value goods to order so they can make an awful lot of money out of it. Unfortunately, the sentencing guidelines do not allow the judiciary to impose suitably punitive punishments on them.
Yeah, I mean, these are people who are breaking laws, and we need to be punishing them, don't we?
Punishment is one thing we need. I think most people, I mean, Ayesha says she speaks for victims. Everything we do is about victims. I mean, the point is that prison doesn't stop reoffending. So victims are very... I spent 20 years representing victims of serious human rights violations. The one thing they all have in common is they don't want it to happen to anybody else.
Absolutely.
And prison is not the way to stop it happening to other people. Because we're locking people in their cells. There'll be people watching this today who are locked in their cells for 22, 23 hours of a day at the moment in prison with no work, no rehabilitation, no training, little access to family and courses.
They all had a choice whether to commit crime or not.
What's
there are so many people in prison, Peter, though, who are dealing with really serious mental health problems before they go into prison. I mean, we've got a system where we're criminalising poor mental health and drug addiction. We need to come up with better community solutions for these people.
Actually, because if you think about it, people at home will be going, yeah, send them to prison, they've done bad things. But actually, when you get into the details, what Andrea's saying, these are people with mental health issues. These are people who are really struggling. It's actually a bit more complex, isn't it?
Of course it's more complex, but if we give them the right input when they're in prison, then hopefully they'll come out better, and they've got to have that lengthy prison
in the prisons. The problem we have is we have so many people in prison, so there are undoubtedly some people who need to be taken away from society for a period of time and need to have the reasons for their offending intervened. But there are many more.
Andrea, what's the alternative? Fines don't work; they don't get paid. Community service.
All of the evidence shows that community punishments work much better and have much lower rates of reoffending than prison do.
Let's ask Richard more on what are the alternatives then?
We've been on a 30-year experiment in this country to just build and build and build the prison population. And where has it got us? It's just got us in this kind of going round and round in circles conversation, where we're going to be here in another 30 years with double the prison population, and then Peter or whoever is arguing that case saying, oh, we need to double it again. I mean, we've just got to get off this kind of merry-go-round of imprisonment. If the issue is about policing, then, well, how did Thatcher get through the 1980s with half the prison population?
Let's keep it off policing.
So, no, exactly. So we're at the situation now where our European comparators are former Stalinist regimes like Poland and Hungary. Now, are those the kinds of countries that we want to be compared with when it comes to our prison system? I don't think they are.
OK, let's look at other countries. So we look at Norway. They send far fewer people to prison. They have low levels of crime, reoffending. Shouldn't we be following their lead, Peter?
Talking of Poland, I went to Krakow, beautiful city, just a few weekends ago. And everybody I spoke to, of course, I talk about crime and punishment everywhere I go. And people said, very little crime around here. It's a very, very safe city. And you saw very few police. Now, just to kind of go a bit off message, I said, well, why is this? Why do we not see police, and yet why have you got very little crime? They said, because generally speaking, we have one culture only here. Now, since the Thatcher days, we have imported cultures from around the world, many of which we didn't want here. So it's a completely different and more complex landscape of criminality and population,
Peter,
and it's very different.
But the point is, we are where we are. We have lots of prisons. We have prisons that are full. What are we going to do? Norway, I know you wanted to get onto Poland, but Norway seemed to do it right in a different way, in the way that Richard's talking about.
Build more prisons, quite simply.
No, but Norway don't build more prisons. This is the point. Can I just get you on that point?
Yeah.
Norway, it works, and they have low reoffending rates. Why can't we do what they do?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the Norwegian prison system. Let me make that perfectly clear. What I do know an awful lot about is crime, policing and punishment in the UK, and that's what I'm here to discuss. So I think we need greater prison capacity, but it is a waste of time, effort and money if we do not put in the rehabilitative services that are required.
OK, Richard, respond to that.
How come Germany can get around with a population half what we have, with actually
a prison population?
Yeah, I mean, it's a larger larger total population, a much smaller prison population than we have. Maybe we should be looking at what Germany's doing.
Have you looked at what Germany's doing?
There is no evidence to
tell me, what did Germany do?
What country is one of the... I mean, America, 30,000 people are killed by firearms every year in America. They have a prison population 4 times what our prison population is. Why do we think that going down the American line is going to actually be more successful for safety than going down the German line?
Our way to become America.
OK, Ayesha,
so the alternatives are?
OK, Ayesha, I just think about the cost. A prison costs £48,000 per year per inmate. Surely, if we just spent that money on the issues, the root causes of crime...
OK, 5.5 billion, that's what it costs the UK taxpayer to run these prisons. I would say, and I've been into prisons, and we're all talking about prisons like they're these absolute dire places. The prisons that I've been into, I've seen in-cell phones, I've seen televisions, I've seen en-suites, I've seen a 5-side football pitch, I've seen access to gym, I've seen access to college, education. I'm not saying don't take all of those away.
Prisons
I've
not
seen those.
Easy.
I'm not saying it's easy, but there are facilities in prisons that if we shave those off...
Which prison?
The prisons... I went to HMP alt course and I saw all of these facilities within that prison. It's a private-run prison. So the cost of prisons to the UK taxpayer, surely we can shave off some of these added facilities to lower the cost.
I spend a lot of time in prisons. I go to prisons all the time. And frankly, I would be delighted if I saw in-cell technology that was working and televisions that were working and gyms that people have access. They do, but that's good, Ayesha, because that is a way of rehabilitating.
Is that good when it's better on the inside than it is on the outside? That's why.
But it's not. I mean, I've also seen loads of prisons where there are rats, mice, cockroaches, people locked up with a rat for 23 hours of a day. Cells where there are holes in the windows, so you can't... There are people stuffing clothing into windows to stop the wind coming in winter, mould, horrible violence, lots of drugs because people are locked up for long periods of time with nothing to do. I mean, these are people who are returning to the community, and you want to treat them like dogs in an outsourced...
But we do have to remember, prison was reserved for the most serious of crimes, and some of the...
It isn't, though, but
it's about the reoffending. We're trying to get the reoffending rates down.
It isn't reserved for the most serious crimes.
Rehabilitation, but certainly take away some of these added benefits that are costing...
Richard, I just want to put this to you. So we're likely in an election year. No political party is going to say we're going to be softer on criminals because they just won't get voted in. And that tells you what the public will is. And, I mean, that tells you probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're in a terrible situation in terms of the politics of prison in this country, and you're absolutely right. Both the main political parties are trying to outdo each other.
Well, it'd be political suicide if they...
Well, no, it is, but we need to remember that, this is a problem that was created in Westminster, it was created in Parliament, and ultimately only Parliament and Westminster can sort it out. Now, in the last general election, the Conservatives proposed a royal commission on criminal justice. Never happened. I kind of think that's not a bad idea, not because I want to depoliticise prisons. Prisons are rightly a very political issue, but we do need to take some of the heat out of the debate so that politicians can look in the round at the issues and make sure we're not in the same situation in 20 years' time. I've worked in this area for, over 25 years, and I've never seen such a toxic, pointless, ridiculous set of policies and debates around prisons as we currently have.
Pointless, toxic, ridiculous.
I share common ground with everybody on these two sofas. I agree. There is an element of community punishments that might be applicable and the such like. But in the absence of an effective probation service, in the absence of proper effective sentences, in the absence of suitable rehabilitation, then quite frankly, the baddest have to be banged up.
And I'm afraid that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you all very much indeed. A really, really good debate, really informed, lots of really good points. Holly, what's the reaction at home?
Yeah, great way to wrap up that discussion, but the feelings at home are very strong on this one too. David's been in touch on X or Twitter. He says, our current system fails on its own terms and squanders human lives. Serious change needed. We need a significant percentage of the prison population in open conditions, doing proper education or working in the community. Mark got in touch on email. He sends, send fewer people to prison. No, build more prisons. We need another 40,000 prison places and toughen up a lot of sentences. Really interesting comments on that. Thank you.